Yeah, what's going on? Now we on chapter 2, which is ground operations of the airplane flying handbook. The ground operations, it ain't as fun as flight maneuvers, takeoff lands, all that, but it's just as important. We start on the ground and we end on the ground. So let's get started. So the first thing we gotta do is look at the pre-flight assessment of the aircraft. A flight can only be safe if the aircraft is airworthy. That means that we got to verify the aircraft meets the FAA airworthiness requirements, and that has been properly maintained. So the airworthy definition under the CFR Part 3 and the 14 CFR Part 3 is it conform in its type design. It must be the original type certification authorized or any authorized modifications. Is it in a condition that's safe to operate? That means it's no structural damage or malfunctions. The components that are inside or outside are maintained without any issues. So what's the pilot's responsibility? For under the 14 CFR 91.7, the pilot and commander is responsible for determining that the aircraft is airworthy before every flight. That's you, the PIC. If something does go wrong or is overlooked, it is the pilot in command that will be held responsible. Remember that. You can't legally take off unless the aircraft meets all the requirements of airworthiness. So what's your required documentation? So it's AERO. So your airworthiness certificate, registration, radio station license, operating limitations, and your weight and balance. Your maintenance and inspection requirements are your annual inspection, your 100-hour inspection, that's if you're using the aircraft for hire, your ELT inspection, transponder, VOR accuracy test for 30, it has to be done every 30 days for IFR flight, and the pedostatic system for altimeter test. Then you gotta make sure you got any airworthiness directives that are taken care of. So airworthiness directives, look at these like recalls. So they're things that must be updated or corrected before you can safely fly, or things that have been mandated to be done in addition to the standard maintenance that's required. You got to make sure that you have any special flight permits or ferry permits. So if an aircraft isn't airworthy but safe for a flight, you can apply for a ferry permit. So if you're trying to get it to somewhere to get it fixed, you may get that permit so that you can get that done. Let's see, the risk and resource management that you got to consider. So manage the risk on the ground is your pilot's ability to recognize and mitigate the risk that directly affects the safety of your flight. So things you got to look at that to identify your risk are your environmental risk, your mechanical risk, and human factors. So your environmental risk, like things like strong crosswinds during taxi, poor visibility, rain, fog, or low sun angle, like the sun's in your eyes, slippery surface from ice or from standing water. Mechanical risk, brake failure, contaminated fuel, engine overheating during taxi. These are things you got to consider when you're managing your risk. Human factors, so distractions from passengers during taxi, poor communication with air traffic control, fatigue is another one. And it's just some different models and different things we can use to kind of help prepare ourselves or to help us understand and identify some of these risks. You can use the PAVE checklist, which is P for pilot. Are you physically and mentally ready to fly? So I'm safe checklist. It's like multiple checklists upon checklists that keep you in check on safety. The aircraft properly maintained and configured. V, environment. What's the weather and the runway conditions? The E, external pressures. Are you feeling the rush or pressure to get this flight done? And then you could also look at the 5P model. So the plan, the plane, the pilot, passengers, and programmers. So weather notice, TFR, aircraft fueled, and then goes back to like some of the other things. And a lot of these safety things overlap. So you may already be like, well, I already talked about what the pilot does. I'm doing the safe checklist, but when you look at all these things, it makes it so that it's harder for things to slip through the cracks when it comes to managing your risk. Ground operations covers everything from fueling to taxiing to loading passengers. So you got your refueling operations, so using proper ground technique for static discharge. Make sure you got the right fuel quantity. Test for water and sediment when you're checking your fuel and something. Don't overfill the aircraft with fuel. And then monitor the vent of the fuel. Passengers and baggage, security and loading. So secure heavy bags near the center of gravity. Ensure the seat belts and shoulder harnesses are functional. Secure cabin doors and emergency exit. Make sure all that's secure. Ramp and taxi operations, follow yellow taxi lines precisely. Avoid high-speed taxi. So don't go faster than a brisk walk. Want to maintain wingtip clearance. Make sure you're not gonna hit nothing while you're taxiing. And then understand some of the standard ramp signals to understand like the crossed arms overhead is stop, raise palm forward is moving forward, and then palms down, moving downward is slow down. Engine starting, you want to make sure you're configuring the area and that it's clear before you start. You want to make sure that your mixture is good, throttle set slightly open, and you're doing what you need to do to get started. Follow your PAAC checklist. Taxiing, make sure you use a small rudder inputs. Keep speed under control and anticipate the left turn tendency when you add that high power set. Once again, make sure you're using your proper checklist for each phase of flight, that you don't rely on memory alone, and except for your emergency checklist should be memorized, even though you're still going to refer to your checklist. But this is just the overview of chapter 2. When you go in depth in it, it'll go way more in detail with all these things. But this, like I said, this is the overview to get you an idea of what's actually in this section of the airplane flying handbook. So keep going. Next up, KT out.